Hi, Shalom. Double honors to the apostles of GMS. Honest you brothers that be pushing this truth in sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth. Back at you again with a kind of news, economics type based situation. A lesson or reading of an article, if you will. And this is going to be based on the middle class. Like I said in the previous video, I was going to do a video touching on the middle class. Now you can you can do your own research and see, going even more into depth regarding the importance of a middle class in the so-called growing economy. But really, this is just a revelation for us as the brothers in this thing and in this truth, and of whoever's just come in or anything like that. This is more what's going to be seen in this article and what we're going to be talking about is just more evidence that this society is really it's already being destroyed, man, piece by piece. All that's left to happen right now is the war to take place, whereby America and Russia and Iran and Israel is going to take the whole so-called developed world into a World War III, like it says in the book of Revelations. Two wars have passed and there's one that cometh hereafter. And that's the time we're in right now. And that statement there in itself tells you the scriptures weren't written in a way that your average person is going to be able to understand it. Because what happened? Was the scriptures not in existence when the First World War was in hadn't even taken place? All right, going to show you the scriptures go back and forth in time, and certain things, most things is repeated, like it says in the book of Ecclesiastes. There's no such thing. There's no new thing underneath the sun. All right, meaning to say, things is are repeated, man. Cycles is repeated. People was repeated. The prophet is gonna come back in their lot. The devil's gonna come back in their lot. They call themselves the Romans. Hurrying back into the previous video, and now they come back as the so-called Europeans, the Americans, and so on and so forth, right? But ultimately, they're gonna have the same end as the Romans did, all right? And just like I mentioned in the previous video, right? Rome had towards the end of Rome had a falling middle class. It had a non-existent middle class, so that the division between the poor and the elite, right, became immense. Ultimately, the so-called poor, which is going to become everybody, right? Unless you're part of the elite banking society, all right. That's gonna make everybody. Once you have that, then it's gonna come into what is not necessarily class wars, is in terms of financial backing and so on and so forth. All right. What you're gonna have then, what's gonna set people apart is race, all right, and whether you're of the elite and whether you're of the poor. But you ain't gonna be able to touch the poor, because not the poor, rather more the elite. Because the elite are going to have their own private militaries that they have contracted out there, of which one example that comes to mind is the Jade Helm that's happening out there. All right, ISIS is another private military contractor that comes to mind. All right, and because your everyday cop, right, your everyday policeman, hell, maybe even your everyday military man is part of that middle class. And as soon as as soon as the finance comes to a point where you can't go on anymore, what you're gonna find out is, man, all right, a lot of them cops and a lot of them so-called military people are gonna give up their jobs, because they know the first people that the so-called poor are gonna go hunting for is them, man. All right, because they put the hell up on the so-called poor and that, man. But now they are the poor, so they're gonna put their badges down. And I believe there's a movie that I'm thinking about, and I've seen it, man. And they was looting, right? If you know the name of the video, you can put it in the comment section. But there's a name of there's a movie of which there was a very particular scene where there's like a policeman that comes into he's in a shop, and someone jumps in and they're trying to get food, all right? And the person looks at the policeman as if to say the policeman was going to stop him. The policeman, or was it a military man, didn't stop him, because he was in there trying to get some food as well, man. I don't remember if it was food or water or whatever, but see, that's what's going to happen to this society, man. And this is going to be some of the evidence laid out. I'm going to be ad-libbing quite a lot and quoting scriptures and that, all right. and you know, points that you want elaborated on, you know, you can search it out in your Google and that. But this is just a brief outline of what's happening in this society, and I will expound upon points that I feel I want to expound upon. All right. So this is and this article set out in Crystal Palace, London, which is South London. All right. And it starts off. It says, I bought a flat, right, for the first time when I was 28, in the rather neglected South London suburban of Crystal Palace. Half a century after the original palace burnt down, and it hadn't changed much since the fire. Right? It says, I am now 54. So the gentleman that wrote this when he was 20, you know, that's was 220. He's 30, so 36 years. Is that correct? Yeah, I think that's 36 years. All right. It says it cost 45,000, and it was absolute limit that I could afford on a voluntary sector salary. And I remember my despair watching rainwater pour down onto the staircase when I had no idea I could afford to put it right. It says it seems extraordinary now to say, terrifying, that my home round the corner, still 3 bedrooms now, with a garden, is now worth 10 times that. Right, so it's in the last 36 years. All right, and let's see when this article was put out. When he wrote this article. It actually doesn't give me a date that I can see explicitly, but nevertheless, in the space of about, we can assume, alright, so there's the date there, so that's 2013, right? So we can assume that in the last 36 years, right, this man's home has not doubled, sorry, that's stupid, that's gone up in 10 times his value, man. And that's happening all across the board, alright? That's gone up, that's happening across the board, excuse me. Alright, I'll put the charger on. But that's what's happening across the board. But see, that's not even an extreme case. In some cases, you know, it goes up by 15, 10, 20, and so on and so forth. Alright. So it says there, and that's an indicator to show you the value of your pound has decreased. It's not that the house prices are going up. It's the same situation that you have out there with the gold and with the silver. Alright, it's not actually that their value is going up or down. It's just that your currency, right, fluctuates, but really it fluctuates on a downward spiral, man. Okay, you got your high points and your low points, but ultimately it's a regressive line that you're feeling. All right, and the only thing that you can have to elude you, right, is the falling prices in oil. But see, the falling prices in oil was money manipulation, so that they could have those this market manipulation, rather, more would be a more accurate term, that they would have, so that they could put some more hell upon them Russians. All right. So it says it seems extraordinary to say. Sorry, I read that paragraph, and it says, if I had bought only 10 years ago, I'll be now working full time in indentured servitude to earn mortgage repayments of £700 or more, right, in a soul destroying job in the financial sector. So if he had bought his house 10 years, 10 years after the fact, he would have had to pay more. If you do the maths there, so it's increased 10 times. So you can, you say it could increase 5 times if he had bought it 10 years on, or about 8 times. So it would have had to pay more money for the place. All right. It says, as for my children, I can't see how, right, they will ever, right, own or rent in London. And it says, and house price inflation also pushes up rent. It says, no, is it just London? If the average UK house price rises in the next 3 decades, and they did like last, right, the average house will be worth 1.2 million. All right. And it says, my children will not be able to, will have to be on salaries of 300,000 to afford, right, their own vast mortgage shackles. All right. And if I read the paragraph, I remember missing. I think I missed a paragraph here, because it says there. It says my earnings have also risen, but arithmetically, not exponentially. So what he's alluding there to is if you imagine an exponential increase in prices, that's what the house prices have been like. But his money has gone up arithmetically rather more. All right, and it's not, it's not relative to the most basic of commodities, the ability to put a roof over your house, your head, all right, along with the heads of your family. And it says pensions, particularly the average UK pension pot is now 25,000, which pays out 1.25,000 a year. It says pension schemes that guarantee 2/3 of financial salary on retirement, as they did generations ago, also have almost disappeared. It says the public service professionals have had their status and pride surgically extracted by a generation of targets, now being turbocharged as payments by results are contracts. It says it isn't surprising that the middle class parents are in a panic. Right, they know that if they do not articulate it, they are no longer pushing to get their children into a begoing middle class. They're struggling to insert them into a shrinking global elite, right? Which is an unlikely factor. You're not going to be able to. You're not going to send little Johnny over to your universities, right? And he's going to come out, and because he's no middle class, he's just going to automatically go to the elite, right? What you're going to find out is the vast majority of you Edomites out there, you crackers, alright, are just really pawns for the elite banking families. Alright, see, if you ain't earning about 100 grand a day, alright, you ain't part of the elite, man. Alright, and that's just a hyperbole. It's a downgraded hyperbole. If the elites are worth trillions, man, they make millions on a daily basis. Alright, they own they print money, man. They own money. They own the banks that print money. Alright. So if your family ain't part of that, guess what, man? You ain't gonna be struggling to make them fit in there. You ain't gonna be panicking to get them into what this gentleman says, into a beginning middle class, man. Right? They're gonna be just like niggas, man. But see, here's the difference. Niggas know how to deal with that shit. Alright, because that's the environment we grew up in. We grew up poor, man. Alright. So niggas gonna be doing what they have to do, but guess what? The scripture also says it's gonna be the time of Jacob's trouble as well. Alright, and especially for you women, it says, "Rise, ye, O ye women that are at ease," right? Because you're dependent upon right, the health of the middle class. Because the middle class, right, gets the vast majority of the tax that you have in there that makes up your state benefits, man. Right, your Section 8. Right, your so-called government benefits and so on and so forth. And, I'm speaking on a kind of a transatlantic, not transatlantic, but like a global. I'm using global terms I can understand. But this example is based in the UK, but you can translate the same thing to the America, where it's going to be Section 8, whereas here it's going to be benefits and so on and so forth, man. All right. See, that's going to be taken away, and that's going to give a lot of people help, man. As for the brothers, we know what the scripture says, man. All right. He says, my servants is going to eat. So the Most High is going to say that we're going to have such situations that we're going to be able to eat, man. Alright. So it says that, it says, despite all the political rhetoric expanded on their behalf, right, are on the way out. So your middle class is on the way out, man. And that's a scary thing. It's going to be a scary thing for you, because that means your kingdom is getting ready to be destroyed, man. It's just going to be the poor versus the elite. Alright, that's why they want to get rid of the vast majority of you people, man, and they're just going to live as the elite, man. Alright, it says, the first question is, who is the middle class? Well, the first question is, who the middle classes are these days? And it says, here it all gets confusing, because some surveys reckon 40% and some reckon 70%. It says, these are certainly vast numbers of new, barely categorizable semi-middle classes. It says, I'm inclined to think that if anything holds them together is the determination to cling on to some sense of independence, right, from the tyrannical landlords or bosses. But there are many people, definitely not middle class, who are the same. Alright. It says the second question is, whether it matters that the possibility of this way of life is beginning to disappear. I think it does. It says, for one, it is important that the middle class realizes that the destruction reckoned on working class is now in store for them. Alright? It says there is no economic purpose for their existence. Right? Their jobs are being replaced by software as fast as it can be invented. So the vast majority of the middle class jobs that you had out there. Hey, Chicago, or is it Motown? Yeah, Motown is a good example of what happens when you have a declining middle class. Because the vast majority of the people there were middle class workers, man. And what did you have? You had it to where the elites would have moved out, if the elites even lived in them areas there, right? And then the middle class quickly transformed into slums, man. All right. It says, for another, they provide a political, right, and economic stability, right? And that's what I've been touching on here. I'm also interested in representing the political, but the economic stability that they give, right, is that they make up the vast majority of the funds that you have out there. See, the elites, man, when they get their taxing, which like I mentioned before, is your taxing is where you get your state your state benefits from. Not just your state benefits, but your state, roads being redone, all of that. That's all state benefits, man. All right, that's all comes from taxation. All right. Alright, but most people don't realize the elite banking families, they ain't getting taxed like that, man. Alright, they don't get taxed like that. They put their funds in offshore reserves, man. Alright, they go through tax loopholes, man. Alright, and they're the least they can create. They created taxation. Why are they gonna tax themselves? Alright, it says rather they depend on taxation. Why are they gonna tax themselves? It says without the middle class, there's no hope for the poor either. It says, but the real reason why everyone needs the middle class is, and he goes into his own soliloquy there. But then that's pretty much the points I wanted to touch on. All right, it says yeah, so he goes into some other stuff that he says. But the real reason why everyone needs the middle class, and why it isn't just about their own children and so on and so forth. It says without the middle class society, it will be divided between a tiny, whether the elites and the great sprawling proliferate, right, struggling for a living, right, measured and tested, efficient software is everything, right, they do at work, right, holding down 3 jobs to survive, and so on and so forth. Alright, which, hey, you know what, that's, I almost overlooked that point. That's going to be an important thing, man. A lot of people are going to be having to work multiple jobs, man, to survive. Alright, but like I said, it was just a short video, right, kind of elaborating on the importance of the middle class. Alright, and we know that the middle class, there's all kind of evidence to show you that the middle class is shrinking, alright, out there in the USA, right, in the UK, and so on and so forth. And this guy's just outlined the importance of the middle class, and I try to elaborate on certain points. Like I said, really, you can go, you can do a whole deep lesson into this, but for the purposes of time, once you get to about 10-15 minutes in, you're just gonna be bored anyway. So if you wanted to know about that, you can always do your own research on the points that I've briefly touched on in this video. But with that, I'm going to say double honors to the apostles of GMS, honest brothers that be pushing this truth in sincerity. Shalom.